As I always mention, my YouTube channel has been meant to document my journey through the Spanish language. As you all have seen, I've gone from speaking no Spanish to, I wouldn't say being fluent, but being conversationally fluent. I can speak with anybody at this point, with me being about 2.5 years into learning Spanish. I can communicate, I can articulate myself well. I feel pretty confident in the Spanish language. With that said, like I said, I like to document everything that I'm experiencing. And in the year 2022, this year, with me, speaking Spanish at this point for over 2 years, I feel as though I'm at a plateau, and I really don't feel like I want to learn any more Spanish. And I'll explain what that means after this airplane moves. I'm also going to explain what I say in this video in English first, then I'll say it in Spanish. So if you'd like to hear both parts, stay for the whole thing. Si hablas español, al final del video voy a explicar lo que dije en español por completo. So I may be repeating myself, but I'm documenting this feeling that I'm going through right now, just so that if you eventually start feeling this way, you know you're not alone. I've seen one of my internet friends, Wes from the Where's Wes channel, I did an interview with him. He talked about this also recently in one of his videos. I'm at a point now where I cannot motivate myself to sit down and study Spanish formally. The reason for that, I think, is because initially when I started learning Spanish, what kept me motivated, what kept me addicted to the learning process, was learning something new every time I sat down to study. I remember the feeling of being addicted to learning something new. This time that I sit down, I'm going to learn a new way of saying this, or I'm going to learn a new, set of words, a new vocabulary. At the beginning of this year, I stopped feeling that way. As a result of that, I stopped being motivated. As a result of that, I felt as if my Spanish has plateaued. So again, I'm just documenting what I'm feeling here. I feel as though at this point, the only way for me to really improve my Spanish without dedicating an unrealistic amount of time to Spanish, again, based on my personal life circumstances, the only way for me at this point to make a large jump or to make a noticeable increase in my Spanish fluency is to live, not even just travel, because I've done the travel thing and I've made gains that way. But I think the only thing at this point, based on my life circumstances, based on the amount of time that I have to document this, I have to dedicate, to Spanish, the only thing at this point, I think personally, that will improve my Spanish to the next level is living in a Spanish-speaking country. So I wanted to just bring this point up because I think a lot of us are going to go through this. You may go through it earlier than I have, but I've gotten to a point where I've increased exponentially, and then I flatlined. And the little growth that I see is minuscule. I see little small increases in my ability to speak, or my vocabulary, or my pronunciation, but I'm not seeing major growth. And again, that's stopping me from wanting to sit down and study or read in Spanish or do things like that. So two questions I kind of have here. If you've experienced this with another language or with Spanish, if you could in the comments let us all know what you've done to pass this intermediate plateau, I think they call it. I know I've heard ideas of studying for an exam, or I don't know, doing things like that, but those are not things that really are interesting to me right now. They're not things that I just don't have an interest to do those things right now. So if there's any other ways of passing this stage in the journey, please let me know, because I'm stuck. I'm honestly stuck. And again, it's just a moment of honesty here for those of you all that watch me. Like, wow, he's constantly improving. Guys, I've been super lazy this year. Not really lazy, I'm still consuming content in Spanish. My phone's in Spanish. I'm still speaking every week in Spanish, but sitting down and formally studying, I don't do it anymore. I'd like to do it, I'd like to improve, but I don't see any other way to improve without dedicating a lot of time to Spanish, because again, that's not my personal way of learning the language. Without dedicating a lot of time, the only way I see me improving anymore is living in another country, a Spanish-speaking country. Another point that I'd like to bring up here is that I'm aware that a lot of people have said, okay, once you get to that point in one language, hey, it's time to learn another language. And I do have the desire to learn a language. I think it's just a healthy mental exercise. But my personality type is one where I like to complete something, or at least get the feeling of completion from one thing before I move to the next thing. With that said, I know that I speak Spanish, but I still know that there's a little bit extra that I could squeeze out in terms of my ability to speak Spanish. I know that I could speak Spanish a little bit better than I speak now. The only dilemma now is a matter of balancing time versus effort versus all of those things. And like I said, the only thing I see right now that would really get me to that level that I would like to get to before I move on to another language is living in another country. So I'm debating how I'm going to make that happen. I don't even know if it needs to be a permanent thing. If it maybe a 2 or 3 month immersion program may do the trick. It may get me over that last hump where I feel like hey, I'm not native level, but I'm comfortable. Like I pretty much can say anything that I want with no problem, and then at that point I can move on to another language. So as I mentioned again, this video, the intention here is just to show you what I'm going through, give you a quick update on my Spanish progress, since I don't really do update videos anymore. And hopefully this is something that you all can relate to if you're past the intermediate stage in Spanish. Again, I'll stop really quick for those airplanes, I'll come right back. So any advice, any comments, any support in terms of this intermediate plateau feeling, if you have any guidance in that regard, please help me out, because I don't know what else to do. Hopefully this video gave you an insight into how my Spanish is going lately, and hopefully it's giving you all at least a little bit of value. At least you can relate to it or expect this to possibly happen to you all if you get to the same point. So ciao pues, I appreciate it. Also, I'd like to shout out one of my students after this airplane goes away. Now that plane is gone, shout out to Samadi, my student. As you all know, I'm a math teacher, so shout out to Samadi. She asked for a shout out. There you go, Samadi. And so if you'd like to hear this in Spanish, stay tuned. If not, chao. Chicos, tengo un problema muy grande. El problema mío es que yo llevo más que 2 años, dos años y medio hablando, estudiando español, y me siento como que si no estoy mejorando. Yo no tengo las ganas de estudiar. Yo no me he dedicado a estudiar desde hace mucho tiempo. Lo que hago ahora mismo solamente es escuchar, hablar y nada más. No estudio para nada el español, y eso me hace sentir un poco mal porque a mí me encantaba estudiar. ¿Qué pasó? Yo creo que lo que pasó es que, o sea, perdí la motivación de estudiar porque ya estoy a un nivel intermedio, avanzado se puede decir, y cuando me meto a mis estudios, muchas veces estoy estudiando algo que ya sé o que me parece familiar, me parece parecido a lo que ya había aprendido, o es como que cuando me siento a aprender, no estoy aprendiendo. Entonces eso me hace sentir un poco aburrido, hace que el proceso sea aburrido y no me da las ganas de seguir con esas cosas. Entonces últimamente lo que pienso es que la única manera de mejorar mi español de verdad es mudarme a otro país, digamos por un rato, 2 meses, 3 meses, hasta 6 meses, para realmente meterme en una cultura donde me tengo que, o sea, donde me toca hablar el idioma y realmente aprender de esa forma, porque ahora me siento que si me meto a estudiar realmente no estoy mejorando, estoy gastando mi tiempo más o menos, porque es como si te hubiera preguntado, ¿no? Como, ¿qué es 2 más 2? Es como un gasto de tu tiempo, como si te digo, como, necesito que estudies 2 más 2, es como, ya sé que es 4, entonces ¿por qué estudiaría eso? No tiene sentido. Eso es lo que me está pasando, más o menos, es una analogía a lo que me está pasando con el español. Entonces les estoy pidiendo consejos. ¿Qué es lo que ustedes hacen o hicieron o han hecho cuando llegaron a este nivel en un idioma? Quizás con tu inglés, quizás con otro idioma que has aprendido. ¿Qué es lo que haces para superar ese nivel donde te sientes como que si no estuvieras mejorando para nada? Entonces ayúdeme, porfa. Para terminar el video de hoy, también lo que mencioné antes en inglés es que muchas personas me han dicho como, pues Michael, eso significa que es el tiempo, es la hora que estudies otro idioma, ¿cierto? Y sí, yo tengo las ganas de estudiar otro idioma, pero soy una persona que le gusta completar, es un verbo, no sé. O sea, hacer todo 100% antes de que yo me vaya a otras cosas. Entonces todavía me siento que me falta un poco del español, como que yo puedo mejorar un poquito más. No es que quiero ser como nativo, ¿no? Pero ya sé que me falta un poco de progreso en el idioma, y la única forma de nuevo, digo que la única forma para mí es estar en un ambiente en donde me toca hablar el idioma cada día, todos los días. Entonces no sé, solamente quería traer ese punto. Lo que mencionaba es que llego siempre para documentar mi progreso con el español, para que si otras personas te sientan iguales, ya saben que hay una persona como yo que está pasando por las mismas cosas. Hay un avión, dame un segundo. Entonces, si tienen algún consejo unos consejos, por favor, pásemelos. Mira, ya todavía estoy haciendo errores, pero si estuviera en otro país, alguien me corregiría. Entonces, no sé, pero ya, eso es el video de hoy. Muchas gracias por ver y nos vemos. Hasta la próxima. Chao.